What's going on, guys? Briar Rabbit here. Today is Tuesday. That means it's time for the weekly Nightfall Strike solo run, and it's going to be a good one. So this one is the Sepix Prime Strike, the Devil's Lair on Earth, and the modifiers are actually pretty interesting here. We got Epic and Nightfall, or Angry. Okay, so Nightfall is way over there. Usually Epic and Nightfall are right here. Anyway, we got Angry. Minions of the Darkness won't flinch even after massive damage. We got Light Switch. Minions of the Darkness deal much more melee damage, but we've got Brawler. Guardian melee damage is greatly increased, so it's still going to be dangerous to fight them with your melee, but at least we've got a fighting chance. This is really the big one. Angry. Minions of the Darkness won't flinch. This means that things like captains that take multiple shots from a sniper rifle aren't just going to get stun locked. You're actually going to have to go chasing after them, and there is no burn. There's no burn at all, so you're going to have to use your best weapons here. My loadout is going to be a solar hand cannon, the Jewel of Osiris. Any solar weapon you could use in this spot. The reason I'm going with solar is for Shanks, because they have solar shields, and there are some wizards that will be fighting as well. So having a solar damage weapon actually helps quite a bit against those guys. I'm going with Ephrodite's Spear because it's got arc damage. And there's going to be some captains that have massive arc shields, and we're going to use this to take down their shields, and then we're going to use Gjallarhorn to actually finish them off. Halfway through the strike, when it's time for the Devil Walker, I will be switching over to the Black Hammer. My loadout is a little bit of a mishmash here. I did go with Skull of Dire Ahamkara, so when I'm using Nova Bombs, I don't die in midair, but Nova Bombs, I didn't really use too much of it, so we're not going to worry about that too much. So with that being said, let's get into the strike. All right, guys, we have landed. It's time to get this strike started. Let's do this. So this is going to be a relatively long strike just because there's no burn damage, right? So it's going to take a while to take down enemies. So I've brought basically all of my most powerful weapons, right? I'm not going to mess around. I'm going to use all of the stuff that Bungie will soon be nerfing in an attempt to take down this strike as fast as possible, even though, or even in spite of that, this is still going to be a long strike just because it's going to take a long time to take care of a lot of the enemies. The falling captains that come out during the next kind of round are going to take a while to take down. I'll be using a combination of Ephrodite's Spear and Gjallarhorn to take them down. The Walker tank I should be able to take down fairly quickly because I will be using the Black Hammer to do it. But all those options are going to dry up pretty soon here because those two weapons plus the Icebreaker are going to get a pretty significant nerf with Update 2.0. And that's one of the things I want to talk about today. I talked about it a little bit in previous episodes of the weekly Nightfall Strike, but this time I want to go a little bit more in depth about it because it's one of those things that the community is just really latched onto, and there's a pretty big debate about. And, you know, some people are really upset about it, and I get it, right? I get why people are upset about it, because in the current game, the way this game is designed is so many of the strike bosses and raid bosses are just bullet sponges, man. It's like, you know, without these high-powered weapons like Gjallarhorn, like Icebreaker, or the Black Hammer, it just takes forever to get this stuff done. And I want to talk about that because I think that that is one of the reasons that they're doing this, is that I think that in the future, Bungie is going to start designing strike bosses a little differently, right? And I think we see evidence of that. This isn't me just like pulling this stuff out of thin air, although I don't have any inside information. I just think we see some evidence that there is going to be a change in the way these encounters are designed. So it's going to be less about just putting massive damage on bosses as quickly as possible using high DPS weapons, and more about kind of figuring out the mechanics of a fight, similar to, let's say, the way the Vault of Glass is designed. So in the Vault of Glass, it's not just about putting as much damage on the Templar as you can as quickly as possible. It's also about, you know, fighting the Oracles and using the Relic effectively. Against Atheon, it's not just about putting as much damage on Atheon as you can. there's a couple of mechanics in there, you know, that slow that progress down and require a lot of teamwork to actually get that fight done. And I think that is the best of Destiny, right? It's that type of encounter. Those raid-type encounters from the Vault of Glass are the best type of encounters in Destiny right now. And I think that's the way Bungie should, and I think wants to, move forward. But they can't do that with the weapons the way they are now, because if you have a boss that can take damage but takes a lot less damage, things like Galahorn, things like the Black Hammer are going to make those fights trivial. Just the way that the Black Hammer makes the fight against the Devil Walker trivial. You know, there's no challenge to taking out the Devil Walker with a Black Hammer. None at all. Right? It's super easy to do, and it's super quick. Is that last sniper? There he is. He's coming. You know, and I think that's the way Bungie wants to move forward. I think that we're gonna see more strikes that have mechanics that are multifaceted, right? So you're gonna actually have to work as a team in a strike. Right now, when you do a strike, how often do you actually talk about strategy when you're doing that strike? Hardly ever, right? You know, part of the reason is you've done these strikes like 1,000 times. You know them like the back of your hand. You know, when I'm doing a strike like the one I'm doing right now, I've been doing this one since the alpha came out. You know, I know this strike. I know where to stand. I know what can kill me and, you know, what's super dangerous. And how to take out these captains as effectively as possible. Because I know that, you know, take down their shields and fire a rocket at them, and that's going to take these guys down really quick. The Devil Walker is the same way. You know, it's like, I know that the Black Hammer is the best way of taking care of them. You know, what if the best way of taking care of them was to do, you know, to drop something on his head? You know, how cool would that be? I can't hit this guy, that's the problem. Oh, you gotta die. Throwing grenades at me. What do you think this is? You know, like, that would be really fun, you know? Like, I really enjoy the Vault of Glass because it takes so much teamwork to compete in. That, to me, is the fun stuff about Destiny. You know, even Crota's End, to a lesser extent, it does take some teamwork to get it done. Although, you know, you can solo Crota's End. Most people aren't going to, but it can be done. Which I think is actually like a design fail as far as Bungie's concerned. Because no raid should be soloable, right? It's just not good design if that's, you know, if what's supposed to be challenging for a 6-man team can be done by one person, you know, that's a fail in my book. All right, there's going to be a couple of dregs over here, but I'm not going to kill them all because I want to go around and collect a little ammo first before the next wave comes out. Hopefully there'll be a little bit of ammo, specifically for my Ephrodite Spear. There ain't a whole lot of ammo, though. Ooh, more dregs over there than I thought. You know, I think that we've seen evidence that Bungie is going to be kind of modifying the way strikes work, right? As I think we've seen this with Cerberus Bay. I think we've seen it with the Skolas fight. The Skolas fight changed dramatically when they took the burns away and gave Skolas less health. Before that, the best way, and sometimes, frankly, the only way I could get it done with my team was to cheese the fight, right? Is to go out there with 3 Galahorns and just rocket the shit out of them. When it was Arcburn, to go out there with 3 Ephrodite Spears and just blast him in the head until he died, and then take care of like the mechanics of the fight afterward. All the mines were done after Skolas was actually dead. The taint was basically not even, we didn't even give it time to be effective, right? There wasn't even time to get that done. Is there another dreg over here. And I think ultimately, you know, this fight is more fun the way it sits now. It's a long fight. It's like a 40-minute fight most of the time. But I think ultimately, it's better designed now because you actually have to deal with the mechanics of the fight as opposed to just trying to put as much burn on Skolas as you can as quickly as possible. I think that was ultimately unrewarding, you know? You know, the Prison Elders has quite a few issues. You know, rewards suck in the Prison Elders. There's not as much randomization as we thought there was going to be. There's a bunch of issues with the Prison Elders. But I think the worst of it at the beginning was that the Skolas fight was just kind of ridiculous, you know? If there was arc burn in that fight, it was nigh unsurvivable, right? Like, there's just so many things shooting arc shots at you, and they all tracked you, so it wasn't easy to dodge it. You know, it was the only way to do it for most people was to actually cheese it with, you know, high-powered weapons right at the beginning, and then wait for the mechanics to happen afterward. And I don't think that's the way Bungie wants this game to be, right? And I don't think I want the game to be that way. I want the game to be more about teamwork and about, you know, overcoming mechanics to beat these bosses. And I think Cerberus Vey shows that, right? Cerberus Vey, it was just a race to basically take him down as fast as possible. And it still is, but at least, you know, it's not just Galahorn after Galahorn after Galahorn. Now, like, you've got a few options on how you can do that. I think Bungie's moving forward with that. Moving forward with bosses that aren't going to be so much about just getting... Oh boy. About just getting as much DPS out there as possible, and more about trying to actually understand the mechanic at play. We've seen the screenshots of the new strike that's going to have a new mechanic where one player is going to carry this kind of electrified ball while the other players are running with them, and then that player has to deposit that ball into kind of this little receiver, and that is what's going to allow you to actually put damage onto the boss. I think that's a much more interesting mechanic than just hiding in this ditch over here and shooting things until they're dead. You know, it's just more fun, it's more interesting the way they're designing the new stuff. I don't know what the Darkstalker is going to be like, right? Is it going to be just, you know, he's got a long range attack and that axe that we've seen that can, you know, one-shot you up close? Is he going to be like a two-shot? And he's just going to chase your raid team around like crazy, or your fire team around like crazy? We don't know what that's going to be, but what I'm hoping is that there's going to be some mechanics to it, so it's not just going to be three guys standing in a circle shooting Galahorns at him until he's dead. Because ultimately I find that to be less fun and less rewarding than something like, you know, a Templar fight, or an Atheon fight, or even the Crota fight. Even though I think the Crota fight, the design of that is too reliant upon the sword bearer. You know, there's basically one guy doing all the work in that fight, and everybody else is standing on a ledge shooting rockets on occasion. I still think that's a better fight than almost all of the strikes. There are some good strikes, don't get me wrong. This, I think, is a good strike, especially if you don't have Black Hammer. You know, if you're not OP like most Guardians are at this point, it's still a good fight. It's still a good strike. I like the Undying Mind, even though that's mainly just, you know, getting as much DPS done as you could. I like the give and take of going up those stairs for the Undying Mind. I think that's a fun strike. And I'd like to see more stuff that's just a little bit different than what we've seen. Where'd he go? Oh. I'm gonna have to let that captain get a shield back. But I'm gonna use a little heavy synth here. You know, these tracking bullets are a real pain in the neck, Bungie. I'm not gonna lie to you. We've seen, you know, a kind of change of the Nightfalls, right? It's like the most challenging Nightfalls now aren't the arc burn ones. They're not the ones that have solar damage, or, well, solar damage is never challenging because everybody just brings a Gallahorn and kills everything immediately. The most challenging ones are the ones with no burn, because our Guardians are just capable of doing less damage, and I think that makes it somewhat more interesting. Some would say it's more boring, you know, it's more tedious. But I think it's more fun this way because you're not just carrying around these overpowered weapons that can kill everything in a couple of shots. You actually have to think about your strategy for each encounter.
But just so you know, there's more fallen.
We'll have to see. And the problem is, right, is they can't move forward with that new design style, right? They can't move forward with bosses that do less, that have less health pool until there's weapons out there that do less damage, right? You know, if we have bosses that don't have a lot of health, that require, you know, maybe you got to do a certain mechanic 3 times. In between, you know, after you achieve that mechanic, you can finally put damage on the boss. But if you got 3 people in your fire team that can do, you know, Gallahorn type damage, the way Gallahorn currently sits, then they might be able to take down that boss in 1 round as opposed to the 3 it was designed around. You know, what if Bungie wants to start doing bosses that kind of metamorphosize, right? So they actually, the encounter changes halfway through the boss fight. But the Gallahorn is so powerful that it kills the boss, you know, in the first round before he even has a chance to change. How do you design around that the way the Gallahorn is? You can't design the fight assuming that everybody has Gallahorn, because everybody doesn't have Gallahorn. It's an RNG-based weapon, and not everybody's got it, you know? So you can't design for it. You have to design the fight assuming that not everybody has it, because not everybody has it. But then the people who do have it, and more specifically the fire teams that have 3 of them, are just going to destroy that content. And that's what we see now. Okay, I just took a shot for his buddy there. He took a Gallahorn to the dome. Saved his friend's ass. Alright. I got 1 rocket left for the main boss. That's not real good. I don't want to use any more heavy because I want to save it for Calyx, or Sepix Prime. There are a couple. There's at least 1 heavy out here. Whoa. Oh, that sniper's still over there. We got at least 1 thrall over here. Light switch is turned on, so we don't want things getting too close. Let's get this ammo and we'll take care of that last drag. Ammo over here. A little sniper ammo, that's good. Alright, we'll take care of this last drag and we'll finish off this encounter. I do love this jewel. So, you know, Trials of Osiris too, I would say a lot of people are a little bit disappointed with Trials of Osiris, right? When it first came out, it was super fun because there was a lot more casual players in it. You know, they formed fire teams, they got into Trials of Osiris, and they had some success because it wasn't just all the most hardcore PvP players in there. Over time, you know, for a number of reasons, those casual players have kind of disappeared from Trials of Osiris. There's still some in there, but for the most part, it's pretty hardcore PvP guys. And that's made the Trials of Osiris pretty difficult. You know, even for good players, it's gotten more difficult. And, you know, that's a shame because the best rewards, I think, out of House of Wolves come out of Trials of Osiris. The Exile gear is fantastic. You know, the armor is as good or better than any raid armor we've seen. It's also beautiful. You know, it's really good looking stuff. And the weapons are pretty good as well. You know, this solar jewel, this was like the pride of, you know, my Trials experience. This was the thing that I wanted the most out of the Trials of Osiris because, you know, it completes my trifecta of hand cannons. You know, I've got now an arc, a solar, and a void hand cannon. But now I've pretty much got everything I want out of Trials of Osiris. You know, I could compete more to kind of min-max my armor, you know. But will that armor even go with me into the Taken King? I don't know. You know, obviously I'll be using it at first because it's the best armor I have. But the new armor, you know, will we be able to upgrade the Trials of Osiris gear with Ascendant Energy or Ascendant Shards? Or whatever, you know, I don't even know what this stuff is called. Etheric Light is what I'm looking for. That's what I'm trying to think of. There's so many different types of money, basically, inside this game that it's hard to keep them all straight. Alright, the big guy's gone. All we gotta do is clean up the rest of this guy. This stuff. But yeah, I mean, Trials of Osiris, this is a failing of the Taken King, right? Or not the Taken King, the House of Wolves, is that my drive to compete in the high-level content is definitely not as high as it has been for raids in the past. You know, the Trials of Osiris is super fun, and it's super stressful, and it's like, it's a real competition. I gotta switch to Black Hammer before I pick up all that ammo. But, you know, it's not... You know, there's only so much of that gear. And once you have it all, like, what's really the point in going back? I still go into Vault of Glass, not because I need gear out of it, but because it's fun. It's like, it's really fun content. Trials of Osiris is PvP, but it's like the hardest PvP you can do in Destiny, right? It's the most stressful. It's you know, it's the hardest. You know, that sums it up, I think, pretty well. You have to go 9-0 to go to the lighthouse, or at least 9-1, and that makes for a difficult experience. And I think now that, you know, a lot of the casual players have kind of disappeared from the Trials of Osiris, that's getting more and more difficult. And if you've already got the rewards out of it, you know, I've already got my Jewel hand cannon, I've already got my Void Scholar, what's really the point? I've already got full sets of Exile gear on all my characters. What's really the point? Same goes with Prison of Elders. You know, I've got all the exotics out of the Prison of Elders. Prison of Elders isn't nearly as randomized as I thought it was going to be coming into House of Wolves. Not nearly. I thought it was going to feel different every week. You know, there's going to be different encounters every week. It was going to be randomized. Turns out it's not really randomized as much as just kind of reorganized every week. Nothing about the Prison Elders really feels random, does it? I mean, it might have the first few weeks, but we kind of saw how it works. We've seen all the bosses. There's kind of nothing left. And the gear sucks. You know, the best gear, I would say, are the 2 sniper rifles you can get out of there. Once you get all that stuff, what's the point? For fun. You know, that's the point of coming back. But when you have the Vault of Glass calling your name, where the mechanics are much more interesting and much more fun,
just on the other
Prison of
side,
Elders,
all
it just
those
doesn't feel that special. If it was more randomized, I think it would feel more special, but it's not. That ultimately was not how that encounter is designed. So that's why I think is that what we're going to start seeing is more mechanic-based fights instead of just DPS-based fights. And I think ultimately that will make Destiny a much more fun game. Instead of sitting back here with unlimited ammo, you know, I'll have to actually fight this fight the way I used to before I had the Black Hammer. I used to be all over this arena. Watch it. Oh, I missed one. Watch an older version of the Nightfall strike on here, and you'll see how different it was. It's completely different. I know that he's not going to shoot me. I feel like no danger over here. I've got unlimited bullets from my Black Hammer. Thing does massive damage and shoots super fast. The Black Hammer makes this fight trivial. And I think ultimately, that's what Bungie's trying to fix. But I completely agree with the people who say, well, they've got to change the way strikes work if they're going to take away our ability to do massive DPS. I completely agree with that. And I think that's the way Bungie's moving forward with strike design inside Destiny's PvE. You know, I think they have realized they have a problem with overpowered weapons and the design of strikes. And that people feel like they need these overpowered weapons to compete in some areas of PvE. I think that's what Bungie's trying to address. But they can't move forward with new strike design and new raid design without taking those weapons away. Which is sad. You know, it's sad to lose these powerful weapons. You know, the first time you unlock Wolfpack rounds on your Galahorn and get into PvE content and see just how powerful this thing really is, it's super fun. It is super fun. But after that, the fun runs out a little bit. How did I miss that guy? You know, once you get past the novelty of having the Galahorn or the Black Hammer, you know, that just becomes the new normal. And I would say that the normality of doing this massive DPS all the time is less fun than the normal of actually having to, you know, fight these fights was. You know, I think it was just more fun before we had these like super powerful weapons in PvE, because you actually had to think about these fights, as opposed to right now you don't have to think about them much at all. Now, part of that is also due to the fact that, you know, we've got these strikes down pat. We know exactly where to stand. We know exactly what to do. With the new strikes, at least there will be some learning experience there too. You know, so that'll be different. That sniper almost got me. I can't wait to take this jewel into a solar Nightfall, though. You know, at the same time, you know, like, I say these things, but I also recognize in myself that it is super fun to have. You know, I'm talking about this jewel, and I can't wait to take it into a solar burn Nightfall. You know, because I recognize that it's super fun to have really powerful weapons and to feel powerful. But, you know, that's something that's got to be designed around. There's got to be kind of... Whoa. There's got to be a limit to these things. Otherwise, these fights just become trivial. But the guns also have to feel powerful and exotic and legendary. You know? Pope Bear likes to say that the nerf to the Black Hammer turns that from a exotic weapon to a legendary weapon, right? Is that the perks on the Black Hammer are so good that it feels exotic. And I would agree with him in that. That to me makes a lot of sense. I only have one shot left for the black hammer. I probably should have used special synth instead. That's alright. I'll be using basically this window the entire fight. You know, I don't know how... It's a tough question, right? It's like, I want the strikes to be more involved. I want them to be more team-oriented. When's the last time you communicated with a teammate in a strike? You don't. You know, how many times have you run a strike for a bounty and you never get into team chat? How cool would it be, you know, if you were almost forced to do that, if you were forced to communicate? That'd be great. It'd make strikes way more fun, I think. And think of all the people you would meet doing that. Where is these guys? Alright, let's clean up these guys so we can start this actual fight. I think that was the last one. Missed that Gallahorn shot. Alright, we're gonna clean up some ads here. Hopefully our timer will expire while we're doing so we can load up on some more ammo. I don't know, guys, let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about this whole issue? You know, there's more to it than meets the eye right at first. You know, it's not a simple issue. It is complicated because it really touches on the design of Destiny as a game. It's definitely not a simple. Whoa, hello. I didn't realize that guy was there. I am like completely out of ammo. It's definitely an interesting discussion, right? And more than just, I think, people being upset that their favorite weapon is getting nerfed. It's not just that. It's really a complicated issue that I think speaks to the design of the game, you know? And we've got new DLC on the way. The Taken King is on the way. It's what, August now, so it's not that far either. This fight is a little more tense than what we've seen so far in Destiny during this strike, so I'm a little quieter. But I'm really looking forward to the Taken King, man. The reveal of, you know, a little bit of the Dreadnought had me really salivating for the new content, because what they showed of that, you know, this is the first time we're getting a new patrol mode, so it'll be interesting to see what Bungie has learned from how players interact with patrols so far. Like, that'll be super interesting to figure out. Like, what are they gonna do with patrols that's gonna be different from what we've seen in the past? That alone is going to be fun to see. You know, they mentioned really briefly that there's going to be stuff that, you know, isn't obvious, right? Stuff that you've got to go out and find. And I find that to be really interesting, right? It's like, it's not just going to be... It's not just going to be, you know, a bunch of level 3 or 13 enemies running around. There's actually going to be some danger involved in going out there and patrolling this new area. That's cool. And there's going to be secrets, right? It's not everything's going to be obvious. There's going to be secrets in there. So it may be that it's worth like hanging around in there and really exploring deeply. Which I think Bungie attempted with the first set of patrols, right? Is with the, you know, the ghosts and the chest. You know, I went and found those ghosts, right? Because I wanted the reward of the Grimoire Sword and the Grimoire cards, so I could read those Grimoire cards. Because I'm really interested in the lore of Destiny. I think it's fascinating. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of story to go with it. But that, you know, that's a different point. So the cards, the ghosts were really interesting. It was really fun to go out there and look for those ghosts. But the chests, you know, I found that all the chests in the alpha, I didn't even look for them in the beta, and I didn't look for them at all in the main game, right? It was not at all what I was here for. And it wasn't until the Moments of Triumph stuff happened where I decided, okay, it's time to find those chests. Up to that point, there was no point in me doing it. How was that a miss? So hopefully the rewards that we can find around Patrol will be really good and really fun. Maybe, you know, exotic bounties will start from patrols. How cool would that be? Maybe there'll be an exotic weapon that can only be obtained by taking down a really tough enemy in a patrol, right? Is maybe they mentioned that you'll be able to actually cause public events. Your actions can actually cause a public event. How cool is that? Maybe that's one way of getting one of the new exotics. That'd be really cool. You know, that would definitely get me to start exploring. I'm running out of ammo pretty good here. So yeah, that Dreadnought stuff had me really pumped up. Now, I was really pumped up. I'm a fan of Destiny, right? I'm a fanboy. No doubt about it. Like, I am just a fan. I really enjoy it. So, you know, I have a real hard bias about, you know, the new content, because not only does it really interest me because it's new Destiny content, but I really want it to be good because it's new Destiny content and I love Destiny. So there's a strong bias on my part when I talk about future content. Because I want it to be so good, I'm excited about it, right? And I'm going to talk about the stuff that excites me. To be honest with you, I don't see anything wrong with that either. You know, the people who feel the same way as I do are going to gravitate toward that kind of viewpoint. And the people who don't will look for, you know, more cynical look at, you know, what's happening in Destiny. And there's plenty of that around, too. Even on the Planet Destiny, you know, podcasts, we don't all agree on everything, that's for sure. But I think that's one of the reasons the Planet Destiny podcast is so good. Not to say we don't have a long way to go with that podcast. There's definitely things we could do to improve it. But I think we've got a strong start, and part of the reason is the diversity of opinions. You know, Pope Bear, Tefty, Patrick, when we had Wally on this week. You know, ultimately, diversity makes us stronger. And more interesting. How did that guy not die? Primary. Here's the primary. I don't know. Destiny definitely hasn't earned a free pass, though, you know? Like, I would say that the best content that Destiny has ever made came out with Vanilla Destiny. You know, the Vault of Glass. The original story, as lacking as it was, at least had cutscenes, you know? At least had some dialogue to it. There was dialogue in the House of Wolves stuff, but no cutscenes. You know, it was really disappointing that, you know, the trailer for the House of Wolves, you know, featured the Queen so prominently, and then she never appears in the actual DLC. Only her voice. So I don't think that Destiny has earned a free pass for this $40 DLC. I think this $40 DLC that's coming out, The Taken King, it's got to be good. You know, people I think are going to wait to buy this one too. A lot of people bought Destiny with the first two DLCs. You know, they bought like a Legendary Edition or a Collector's Edition or something like that that came with the DLC for the first two DLCs. So they were, you know, their investment had already been made. They were going to download it regardless. This is the first time they're asking people to re-up monetarily for DLC. So we'll see. We'll see if people are willing to do that, you know? I missed that last shot. I'm gonna have to go out there and get more ammo eventually. Prospect that I don't much look forward to. Here's a big boy. Use some black hammer shots on him while he's here. Pretty good. Well, he stayed here too. Let's see how long he'll just let me do this for. He's got to be near dead. In fact, he is. That fight's not too bad.
Well done.
Just about waiting it out. Without burn weapons, obviously it takes a little longer.
Cast a great shadow over our city.
But yeah, not too bad. So, wonder what we're gonna get here. I always refuse to look at the left-hand side of the screen because I don't want to know.
Fallen are crafty, and they'll find ways to survive.
I like to save it for the reward screen. I don't know, guys. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about the Taken King, about the strike design, about, you know, the nerfing of these weapons. It's a big topic, and it's not a simple one. So I definitely understand why people are upset. I understand the reasoning behind it. I'm personally in favor of it, just because I'd like to see a more complex future for Destiny. Instead of just being able to burn through content with a Gallahorn, I'd like to see a more complex future. So we'll have to see. All right, we got a Amplified Geo D6. It's easier to aim under fire using this weapon. Reloading this weapon has a chance to grant a larger than normal magazine. I believe this is a really high rate of fire, low impact weapon. I'll check it out, but it's really hard for weapons to compete with Praetor's Revenge that are these like high fire rate weapons. So I'll take a look at it, but I'll probably end up sharding it anyway. That's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Hit that like button if you liked the video. Hit subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.